Well, the entire securities market in Nigeria meets once every quarter, once every 3 months, and the first meeting for the first quarter of this year was on Thursday last week, March the 21st. And of course, this very large meeting, which comprises of all the securities exchanges, market participants, lawyers, solicitors, brokerage firms, asset managers, and everyone in between, usually very big. And so on the second day, you have what you call a briefing of what the key issues are. And as usual, there's always a very long list of issues that were discussed across board. So the market is very large with thousands and thousands of participants. So what are the key themes and decisions reached at the meeting last Thursday? We got a briefing on Friday from the head of the SEC, Mary Uduk. Let's take a listen to her.
The Nigerian Capital Market Community held its first meeting for the year on Thursday, March 21st, 2019. The meeting is a periodic gathering of stakeholders in the Nigerian capital market where critical issues and robust discussions are held and decisions are taken concerning developments in the Nigerian capital market. As many of you have observed, this week stands out as a memorable one in the Nigerian capital market, as it witnessed the Commission hosting its first award night on Tuesday, March 19, 2019, themed Committed Partnership, Capital Market and Economic Development, to recognize individuals who have partnered with the Commission to work in various technical committees towards achieving the initiative in the said 10-year Capital Market Master Plan. We equally had a third in the series of our budget seminar, where the role of the capital markets in effective budget implementation was discussed. The year 2019 promises to be an interesting one for the Nigerian capital market, as we shall undertake a review of the 10-year Nigerian Capital Market Master Plan. This review is intended to align the master plan with current realities on macroeconomic, political, and market development fronts. Meanwhile, the Commission has approved the rules on green bonds and would, in the nearest future, introduce the rules on derivatives trading. We believe all these are necessary to move our sector forward. I am glad to inform you that we had a successful CMC event yesterday. Discussions at the meeting featured updates, presentations from technical committees, SROs, and observer groups on various capital market initiatives. The discussions and resolutions at the meeting include the following. The Commission has made progress in attempting to resolve the issues around transmission of shares related to the estate of deceased investors. This process has commenced with the Lagos State Probate Registry, and the Commission, with the support of relevant stakeholders, shall carry out an engagement or enlightenment program for the Probate Registry. The Commission will direct public companies to grant its representatives and registrars at AGM meetings to address shareholders on the benefits of distributing annual reports electronically. The Financial Literacy Technical Committee has developed and included financial literacy content on dedicated web pages on the SEC website. We encourage investors to utilize these pages to learn more about the capital market. As part of our efforts to ensure successful implementation of the complaint management framework, the Commission has ensured that all trade groups are duly registered. The Commission, therefore, is working on institutionalizing periodic meetings with the heads of trade groups to define their roles and address their challenges. The capital market community recognizes the importance of the e-IPO project to improve issuance processes and encourage more investor participation. The draft framework for its implementation has been developed and presented at the CMC meeting. the SEC has exposed the framework and rules guiding the EIPO, and stakeholders now have up till Friday, March 29, 2019, to review and send their suggestions for improvement. The existence of a harmonious relationship between the Commission and the CAC is very vital to the development of the Nigerian capital market. To this end, a technical committee would be constituted to address mutual issues of concern between the Commission and the CAC. In addition to the resolutions reached by the CMC, members held discussions on other pertinent issues in the Nigerian capital market. These include engagement between the Commission and CBN on margin lending has since commenced. However, deliberations are still ongoing on the inclusion of bank shares in the margin list. The Market-Wide Committee on Identity Management and Account Validation for Transactions in the Capital Market was enjoined to fast-track its activities. In furtherance of this initiative, the Commission is to engage the CBN to facilitate the validation process through NIPS. It was acknowledged that the materialization exercise was successful. However, the implementation of this initiative was restricted to shares of listed companies. Consequently, the CMC is advocating for the extension of the exercise to shares of unlisted public companies. This would enhance liquidity and ease market processes. The market advocated for the Commission to take strong actions against company secretaries who edge the trade of shares of unlisted public companies outside a SEC-recognized platform as required by law. To showcase the immense potentials of the commodities ecosystem to the economies of subnationals, the Commission, in collaboration with the Commodities Ecosystem Implementation Committee, is planning activities to sensitize members of the Nigerian Governors Forum, especially now that general elections are over. To this end, an international conference is being proposed to hold in September 2019 with experts from within and other jurisdictions expected to be in attendance. The market was also informed of some successes recorded thus far in the regularization of multiple share subscription. Through this exercise, some Nigerian investors in diaspora have been able to consolidate their shareholding accounts. Similarly, several local investors with numerous accounts have also been able to consolidate their investments. We therefore enjoin the general public to take advantage of this initiative to regularize their shareholding accounts before the December 31st, 2019 deadline. We crave the indulgence of the ladies and gentlemen of the press to assist on sensitizing the public on this initiative. We continue to seek the support of the media and the collaboration of the entire market as we strive to build the capital market of our dreams. We came up with the award. Yes, it is the first, and my only regret is that it took this long for an award for capital market operators to be instituted. The reason being that regulators can't work alone. The capital market operators are the real stakeholders, one of the most important stakeholders in the market. If you do not have their cooperation, if you do not work with them, then as a regulator, you're working alone. I want to say that I've been in this market for a while, and I know that capital market operators have been a key partner to the development and the success of this market. They have been there over the years, through thick and thin. When the market was down, it hurt them. Today, a lot of them are struggling, to ensure that the market is revived. And they're doing that in partnership with the SEC representing the government. And therefore, if we didn't have their cooperation and their partnership, this market probably would have been a lot worse than it is. And they work with us a lot of the times pro bono. He should be in his office, but he's here. We set up these committees after the launch of the 10 years capital market master plan. A lot of them are broken into committees. They work pro bono. Sometimes they have to come to Abuja. They have to leave their offices. They utilize their brains, you know, their experiences they bring to bear in the work of the committees that they do. And we thought that it was important to let them know that we appreciate all of the work that they do.
Thank you very much.
So that is the reason why that award night took place. And we are hoping that it is the beginning of such partnership with the market. Now, in terms of improvement of free float in the market, yes, there's a dedicated committee in respect of liquidity, improvement of liquidity in the market. If you look at capital markets across Africa and other jurisdictions, liquidity is a very big issue. I recalled in the course of, I think it was last year, when ASEA conference was held, one of the key discussions was the issue of liquidity. And there are so many factors. And yes, this committee was instituted to say, look, go do research, find out how can liquidity be improved. We know that free float is not just the only reason why there are issues in liquidity. Yes, if you recall, for those of you who are who have a lot of experience in this market, sometimes when you need to bring in companies to list, private companies to list, you go into a hard bargaining. It's a lot of give and take. And some of the things that you need to give out is the issue of free float. A lot of them prefer to own their companies 100%. But what we are saying to them is, please, in some jurisdictions, even free float is, they say give 10%. That is to say, hold 90% and, you know, just give the market 10%. As your company grows, you can maybe give 15, you know, like that. And that has happened in this market. I know that a lot of you know some companies that free float is less than 20% in this market. So this committee was set up to talk to such companies and say, how do you get them to give out more shares for trading, you know, and also generally improve other aspects of liquidity other than free float in the market.
The head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Mary Uduk, of course, packing on a lot of issues there into those presentations, of course, for quite a lengthy one. But let's break it down a little bit across the various headline issues that she spoke about: the dematerialization, demutualization, the e-filing, the e-IPO, but in particular, the review of the Nigerian Capital Markets Master Plan, which she talked about earlier. Let's take a listen to some of the SEC's commissioners as they broke down those points which were addressed earlier by the head of the commission. Take a listen.
The SEC took critical cognizance of this low pace, and the DG has made up our mind that we're going to do a review and see how to intensify or how to re-strategize on how to get the public interested. The SEC cannot continue to pay for the registration of mandates, as we all agree. But there's a strategy that we're going to review and develop with the market, with the banks, and with the registrars to entice investors. The total amount of money deductible from every approved mandate is 150 naira. And investors are not going to be asked to pay the 150 naira at the point of registration. So please help us explain this, members of the press. So if you have 120 accounts, you just mandate company by company. And the only thing you pay per company, if you have dividends of about 2 million, you just pay 150 naira. If you have dividend of 200,000, you pay 150 naira, just for a token fee of of processing or maintaining the processing portal. It's not even for fee of profit, but just to maintain the portal. Bandwidth is required and so on and so forth. So that 150 naira is what they pay. And investors are not going to be asked. Please encourage them that they should please go to their banks, the nearest bank to them, and submit their forms in terms of that. So about 2.7 million is the statistics, as I yesterday reviewed. We believe that by the time we're giving you a report next, we believe that it will have grown beyond that. Now, the level of unclaimed dividends. Unclaimed dividends in the market, you will recall, is being tackled from minimum of two solid approaches. The use of e-dividend. For every e-dividend that is mandated, all accrued dividends that have not been paid gets automatically paid. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Then the use of multiple accounts. Regularization of multiple accounts is another one. We discovered that while e-dividend is growing and it is reducing unclaimed dividends, the pace is not as satisfactory as when we observe that multiple accounts which have not been claimed for many years are still having dividends accrued. So we decided that the multiple accounts regularization needs to be tackled grossly and speedily, because there are some people that have multiple accounts. They can only make claim on one account for the dividends. All the other, example of somebody who had 200 accounts can only claim dividend on one. The remaining 199 keeps getting accrued dividends. And for as long as those ones are not regularized, the accrued dividends will continue to be growing because companies keep declaring dividends. So before we can give you the statistics of the level of unclaimed dividends today, we want to see how much of it, and registrars and stockbrokers have been given mandate to reconcile the level of multiple accounts within the next 2 weeks.
Now, any unclaimed dividend, which is 15 months and above, is returned to the company. And of course, we also have a rule specifying where the company will invest the unclaimed dividend, because the company is expected to invest the unclaimed dividend in security that could easily be converted to cash. And of course, if the unclaimed dividend is, with the companies, you will find out that directly the shareholders will also benefit, because the company will be the one investing the unclaimed dividend. And of course, that interest goes to the company, and when dividends are distributed, that interest will be part of the profit of the company. So instead of the unclaimed dividend staying with the registrars, once unclaimed dividend is 15 months and above, it returns to the company. So in addition to the explanation given. Then the second issue of unclaimed dividend trust fund, yes, there was a move by the Commission to create unclaimed dividend trust fund. But that move was dwarfed by the stakeholders. They didn't agree with that, and because of that, that move has been abandoned. So we don't have any such move now.
There are some countries, there are some jurisdictions whose capital markets depend mostly on derivatives. As we speak, the rules on derivatives is in place, and we have been building capacity in-house. We have a dedicated department, that will be reviewing derivatives.
Okay, quite a number of issues there to unwrap around the CMC, the Capital Markets Committee meeting. Of course, the next will be at the end of the second quarter. Let's take a break. We'll come back to the market. It's our MPC week, and when that happens, we'll try to check across all the markets and find out what's the outlook on the second Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the year by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The meeting has actually started. There's a 2-day meeting, and the decisions tomorrow afternoon, lunchtime. Back in 2, everyone.